D&D number 10, Circle of Life in Jesus' Name, Part 2, Chapter 18. September 21st, Saturday morning, Perez home, Hillcrest, California. Young Eric and Jordan drove up to the tiny house in Hillcrest at 11 a.m. They'd already worked out on the beach, a longer one than the day before, since young Eric had been given the day off. They then had a delicious breakfast, showered again, dressed, and headed south. All of those activities so far had been peppered with kisses and hugs and murmurs of I love yous. The door opened before they could get to it, and Jamie came running out. Hey, Jordan. Hey, Eric. Jordan held out her arms, and her little brother ran to her and hugged her. He then looked over at Eric, who offered a hand. Jamie grinned as he proudly shook hands. You must be excited about your day, Jordan said. I am. Josie is too. And my friend down the street is too. He's going to come up to meet you, Eric, 'cause he doesn't believe that I know you. Jordan looked up at Eric. Oh, 3, I'm sorry. He smiled. It's okay. We'll show this friend that Jamie doesn't lie. Right, Jamie? Jamie nodded. They made their way inside, and Josie ran to hug Jordan. Jordan hugged her a long time. And when she finally had to pull her away, she frowned. What's wrong, honey? Jordan asked. The girl, the quiet girl, looked up at Jordan and then at Eric. She didn't say anything. You want to talk later, like privately? She nodded. Jewel Perez came in from the kitchen. Hello, Eric. It's so nice to see you again. You too, Mrs. Perez. He sniffed the air. It smells really good in here. My stomach is already rumbling. She laughed. Good. I hope you have a good appetite because I'm making plenty of food, but what you smell right now is the dessert. It smells so good. What is it? Buñuelos. I've never heard of it, Eric said. Jordan laughed. Mom says they're buñuelos. I say they're donut holes. Well, whatever they are, it smells so good. Mrs. Perez, I hope you didn't go out of your way just to cook for me. She giggled. Cooking is never out of my way. I love to cook. She giggled like a little girl, Eric thought. She was such a sweet lady. Her giggle reminded him of Jordan. He turned toward the children. So, guys, are you ready to go find a park that has a ball field and maybe a basketball court? Basketball? You didn't say anything about basketball, Jordan said. He shrugged. Well, when I was looking for my old glove, I found my old basketball. I used to play a little. Thought it might be fun, a little 2v2, you know. I like to play basketball, Jamie said. We play down at Corey's house all the time. Cool. Mrs. Perez, what time do you want us back here to eat? Oh, I guess between 3:30 to 4 would be good, unless you get bored. Come on back any time. He smiled. Yes, ma'am. They loaded up into Eric's BMW and headed out, but almost immediately Eric decided to take a detour. Hey, Jordan, do you mind if we make a short stop? Well, no, of course not. You hear that, guys? We're going to make a short stop before we get to the park. Jamie looked slightly disappointed, Eric saw in the rearview mirror, but he knew that would change in just a few seconds. He pulled into the strip shopping center across the main road from the neighborhood, drove to the far end of the long building, and pulled up in front of a sleek storefront with Kino Martial Arts printed on the large glass window. There was a collective gasp. Eric smiled. I thought we could just run in real quick and see if Master Cook is in, get some information, and see what it would take to get Jamie into school on, like, a scholarship. And Josie, too, if she's interested. I think it would be really good for Josie. Martial arts instills confidence in kids. Can I come in with you? Jamie said. Of course. You can all come in, or if you girls aren't interested, you want to wait in the car, you can. Oh, no, I don't want to wait in the car. I'm coming in. I want to see how different this studio is than the one in Newport, Jordan said. Well, the one in Newport is one of our flagship studios. It's also one of the biggest. It was an old warehouse that was converted into a small private school who built the gym. And then when the school moved to a bigger place, my grandfather procured the building. So Newport is a great deal bigger than most of the other studios. He turned off the car. Let's go in. There might be a Saturday class going. We'll just have to see. Eric held the door and let the 3 precede him. A woman in a white gi and a black belt smiled up at them from where she sat at a desk. She rose and nodded. Hello there. It's nice to see you all, and what can I help you with? She shook the kids' hands, then Jordan's, and then looked in the young Eric's face as she shook his hand and stopped, her mouth forming an O. Oh, my goodness. Master Kino. Oh, my. What are, I mean, how can I help you, sir? Eric smiled. What's your name? I'm Erin Cook, Master Cook's wife. Mrs. Cook, we just wanted to get some information from my friends here. We were hoping to look into a scholarship for Jamie, possibly for Josie too. If not now, then maybe down the road. Oh, yes, of course. She started gathering brochures. Take these, but, Master Kino, my husband is in class right now, she said, nodding toward the class area. He would be so honored to have you all come in and visit for a few minutes. And Mr. Jamie here could get a look at what a class is like. Please, would you consider stepping into the class? Eric looked at Jordan and the kids. What do you say, guys? Can we spare a few minutes to watch the class? Jamie nodded, his eyes wide with excitement. Josie didn't really say anything. Jordan smiled, her eyes dancing because she knew young Eric was a little uncomfortable with the complete adoration Mrs. Cook was displaying. Oh, yes, Master Kino, she said. Let's go watch the class. It's a perfect opportunity. Eric frowned at her, then nodded at Mrs. Cook. Okay, we're in. Lead the way. They followed the woman to the class area. She opened the door. The class was currently divided into groups of 4 with black belts holding kicking pads for the younger ones. Master Cook looked up at the intrusion and smiled at his wife. Master Cook, she said, you have some visitors. She walked in and they followed her to the front of class. Master Cook's eyes widened in surprise. Attention, class, he said loudly. They all immediately lined up and stood absolutely still, and Master Cook moved forward and bowed to young Eric. Master Kino, it's an honor to have you visit us. Eric bowed. The honor is mine. He quickly looked him over. He was about 30 years of age, Eric guessed. About 6 feet tall, short brown hair, thick, muscular. He looked ex-military. Eric offered his hand, and Master Cook shook it. Master Cook, I am sorry for barging in. I only came by... Hold on. I'm sorry for barging in. I only came by to see about possibly having this young man here attend your school. He's a good friend of mine, and he lives nearby. And I apologize that I didn't make an appointment. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision to swing in and check it out. Well, no need to apologize, sir. We're glad you did. This is Jamie Perez, Eric said. Jamie, this is Master Cook. The man bowed to Jamie, and Jamie bowed like young Eric had shown him last week. So, your kind wife invited us to watch class for a few minutes, Eric said. The master nodded, then turned to his class. They were waiting to find out who was visiting, though most of them already knew. They were all grinning, and there was a murmuring and pointing as each person spotted Eric and pointed him out to their friends. There were parents sitting in chairs at the back of the class, and they too were whispering and motioning. Jordan watched all this and realized, like Eric had once told her, it was not all fun being famous. She looked up at him. He had his head slightly bent in a humble gesture. Attention, class, Master Cook said again, his brows arched as if he couldn't believe that they would be undisciplined in front of this distinguished visitor. The class snapped back immediately to attention. We have some visitors. As some of you have already realized, Master Eric Kino III is here. Everyone, please show him your respect. Turn. The entire class turned slightly to completely face Eric. Attention. They became completely still, arms and legs straight, and touching each other, toes pointing forward and their arms straight down at their sides. Bow. The entire class bowed slowly and deeply. Eric returned the honor, then straightened and spoke. Hello, everyone. Hello, sir, they returned. Eric smiled. I'd like you to meet Jamie. He's a good friend of mine. He leaned over and whispered to Jamie. Jamie bowed, and the class bowed to him. And this is Josie, another good friend of mine. He whispered to Josie, and she bowed, and the class bowed to her. He put his arm around Jordan. And this is Miss Brooks, and she's my girl. And the class chuckled and bowed to her, and Jordan bowed to them. So, Master Cook, Eric said, please continue on with your class. Well, maybe we'll do some forms for your friends there and demonstrate some punches and kicks. I'll leave it to your discretion. Let me get some chairs for you, he said. Nonsense, we can just sit here on the floor. Please, sir, I couldn't let it get around that we didn't provide you with a chair. Eric nodded, and some of the students grabbed 4 empty chairs and brought them to the front of the class. Master Cook swung the class into action, beginning with the youngest students doing their forms, then the next level, and so on up to the black belts, who were very impressive. Jamie was grinning from ear to ear. And then the class was called to attention, and Master Cook called out fighting sequences, and the class demonstrated some punches and kicks. The young students, who sometimes didn't remember their left from their right, were gently corrected. Eric decided after about 20 minutes it was time for them to go. He rose and Master Cook came to him. Eric, thank you for stopping in. You've really made the day for some of these kids. Eric stepped away from Jordan and the kids for a more private conversation. It's my pleasure. You really made the day for Jamie. He leaned close to Master Cook and spoke softly. He's had a hard time. Father went to prison, very limited finances. Let me know what he would require to audition for you to gain access to a scholarship. Of course, if he doesn't pass, I'll pay his way. But either way, let's make this happen. Well, I'll just give him a scholarship. Eric shook his head. Though I appreciate the sentiment, he has to work for it. I understand. Eric, some of my young teenage black belts are working extremely hard to try to be awarded with the opportunity to face Gabe Tanner in the coming mini-mart. Would you consider staying an extra 5 minutes more and demonstrate maybe a special form or some sparring moves with them? Something maybe to really motivate them? Eric sighed. I'm not in uniform. Well, they'll understand. After all, are we in uniform when called upon to actually fight? Eric smiled. You got me there. Yes, I'll demonstrate a few sparring moves to use against Gabe, he said with a smile, thinking that Gabe would appreciate the humor of the situation. Class, Master Cook said, Master Keno has agreed to demonstrate some sparring moves, ones that might be applied if you were to make it to the mini-mart. Yes, a few students whispered excitedly. The students moved out to sit in a large circle around the class area. Eric bowed, then moved to the center of the room, stood at attention, and bowed to Master Cook. He relaxed and began to speak and demonstrate as he did. Jordan watched, amazed at how the entire class and the parents in the back sat in rapt attention. Of course, her Eric was extremely captivating. He spoke softly. He moved with extreme speed and power. After demonstrating a move and explaining the reasoning behind it, he motioned toward one of the teen black belts and asked him to stand and fight. He went through some movements with him in slow motion, and when the young man thought he had it, they went in real time. Of course, the young man ended up on his back, but he was grinning. He stood and bowed to Eric and then looked at his class with a grin. Wow. They all chuckled. Eric demonstrated on all 4 teen black belts and then decided it was time to go. I'll leave you with a special form my father and I have been working on and may one day introduce to the schools. It's an advanced form. I'm a 3rd Dan. My father, as you know, is a grandmaster, so it's pretty difficult for me, but I'll try. He backed up to the center of the room and bowed. He took his fighting stance and went into motion. The class was totally silent, except for some sharply indrawn breaths and a few oohs and ahs. When he ended and bowed, the entire class and the parents all stood reverently and gave him a standing ovation. He went to Master Cook and thanked him again. Everyone bowed to everyone, and finally Eric, Jordan, Josie, and Jamie were back in the car and headed for the park. Sorry, everyone, Eric said. I didn't think it would turn into such a big deal to stop by the studio. That's okay, Jordan said. It's always fun to see you in your element. It's hot. He glanced at her with a smile. You know your brother and sister can hear you. She laughed. So? Josie thinks you're hot, don't you, Josie? Josie giggled. Eric rolled his eyes. Let's go play some ball. They went to a sports complex and that had it all. 3 ball fields, 8 soccer fields, 2 indoor basketball courts, though they were a little worse for wear. No, 2 outdoor basketball courts, though they were a little worse for wear. 2 playgrounds, one for little kids and one for older kids. A dog park section, a skate park, and a wet pad. They went immediately to the ballpark. Everyone got some batting practice. Eric and Jamie used his baseball bats and balls, and Jordan and Josie used her softball bats and balls. Josie pitched to Jordan while Eric ran around the outfield snagging balls, throwing them into Jamie, who then threw them to Josie. When it was Eric's turn to hit, Jamie pitched and Jordan chased down his balls. But softball fields were much shorter than baseball fields, and after he hit the fourth ball out of the park, they made him switch to bat left-handed. Jordan pitched to both Jamie and Josie while Eric played the field, and when they tired of softball, they went to play some basketball at one of the courts. Neither one was currently occupied, which meant they got to play and try weird trick shots and be silly. Jamie tossed a ball high. Josie caught it, and Eric lifted her high to dunk it. Jordan dribbled the ball between her legs, pulled up, jumped, and hit a perfect 3. And Eric smiled at her. You played in high school, didn't you? She grinned. You think? The game was on. Eric and Josie against Jamie and Jordan. New scene. It's September 21st, still Saturday afternoon, just south of the Californian-Mexican border. There was no way they were going to be able to get close to the 14 women being held captive in that warehouse, not without a direct approach. He drove up in the white van with clear lettering on the side, Gomez Brothers Couriers, 24-hour guaranteed delivery or it's free. He was alone, more than one in the courier truck, and they would be suspicious. Though he wasn't really alone. His Overwatch today and sniper if needed was Jensen Deal, one of the best. Okay, Cam, we got the 14 in a room in the warehouse in the back left corner. There is one small exit door in the back right corner. The guy watching the monitors in the front right office will be the one to come to the door when you knock. That means no one else will be monitoring the cameras. Once you take him out, we'll send in our 4 with the 6 federales through that rear door. Right now, you have the camera dude and 7 others. 4 sitting at a table directly to the left of your front entrance. 2 about halfway down on the right in a room that might be a bedroom. 1 in a bathroom next to the bedroom. After that, as far as we can tell, there's only 1 standing guard in front of the room where the women are, and the federales will take him. All the others mentioned above is all you. Got it. Drawing a deep breath and saying a quick prayer, Cam got out of the van and went to the back to get the package. He carried the box, acting like it was heavy. Even put it down to get a better grip and picked it back up. He knew he was on camera. The box was the same shape and size of 2 other deliveries sent here over the past week. Same courier name, same shape box. It should get him entrance. He approached and knocked. The door opened. You're not Emilio, the guy said in Spanish. Cam replied in Spanish, definitely not. Emilio is not available. ¿Por qué no? Why not? Cam gave a soft chuckle. Because he disobeyed orders and now he's dead. He spoke in Spanish. The guy at the door snickered. Bad luck for him. Sí, yes, but good luck for me. He opened the door wider, and Cam pretended to struggle with the package. The man stepped out of the door to help, and Cam grabbed him from behind, choked him out, zip-tied his hands and feet, and slapped tape over his mouth in about 30 seconds' time. Consider yourself lucky, he murmured. Door guy neutralized. Send in the troops. I'm going in, he whispered. He stepped through the door. The 4 at a table were in clear view and immediately pulled guns. He had no choice. He had to take them out, which he did quickly. The warehouse was huge. Gun drawn, Cam worked his way down toward the women and was accosted by the 2 coming out of the supposed bedroom on the right. If you don't want to end up like your buddies, drop your weapons and get on the floor, he yelled in Spanish. They glanced past him at the 4 prone bodies lying behind Cam before they placed their guns on the floor and raised their hands in the air. Cam yelled again, "Get on the floor." He kicked the guns out of reach and knelt down to search them and zip-tie wrists and ankles. He sensed movement behind him and turned just in time to block the guy coming at him with a knife. The blade nicked Cam's face and slashed through his forearm. Cam rolled, came up and grabbed the guy's wrist, rolled his body again, breaking the wrist, and the guy screamed. Cam's blood was making it slippery, but he finally was able to choke the guy out and secure him. He was breathing hard and in pain, and realizing his shoulder also had a gaping wound. He cursed. Cam, you okay? Losing blood. I'm gonna need some stitches. Everyone's been neutralized. 14 grateful ladies are being led to safety. Agent Wyatt should be approaching you with first aid. He'll assess and will airlift you out. Yep, got it. Hey, Wyatt. Jeez, Cam. Agent Deal, we're def gonna need to airlift him out. Well, Chopper is standing by, ETA 7 minutes. Just let me see him, please. I'm a doctor. Cam looked up at one of the rescued women. She was fighting her way to see him. She says she's a doctor. Let her come help me, please. The woman approached. My name is Julia Roberts. You're kidding. You're certainly a pretty woman. She smiled. Gee, I've never heard that one before. I'm a doctor. I was taken by these idiots from a medical camp in Bolivia. Lay down. He rolled to his back, gladly, 'cause I'm not feeling too well. She went through the first aid bag Agent Wyatt had provided, pulled out a hemostatic clotting sponge, and began to work on him. Gonna need stitches, she said. Yep, that was my assessment, Cam mumbled with a laugh. She worked on him quickly, stopped the bleeding, wrapped the arm and shoulder, then took out an antiseptic wipe and worked on the cut on his cheek just under his right eye. She looked into his eyes as she worked on him. You're the pretty one, she said. You might end up with a scar on this pretty face. Cam chuckled and closed his eyes. The doctor looked down at Cam's hand, picked it up, examined his wedding ring. Oh, well, all the good guys are always taken. Yeah, he's definitely taken, Agent Wyatt said, and I'm sure you'll know who his wife is. Why? Who's his wife? Dr. Juneflower Keno Wallace. Her eyes opened wide. Oh, wow, well then. I can't compete with that, Cam moaned. Are you nauseated? The doctor asked. Yes. Agent Wyatt put his hand to his earpiece. Chopper's here for Cam. The one to transport you ladies is right behind. Thank you, Dr. Roberts, for your help. My pleasure. Thank you all for believing we were important enough to come and get. I thought I'd never see my family again, and who knows what lay ahead of me. Well, if you don't know, I guess I shouldn't tell you. And it was actually the Mexican Federales who contacted Ameritech to help them get you ladies. So, thank them. I will. EMTs arrived with a stretcher and loaded Cam up. She squeezed his hand. You'll be okay, Agent, Wallace, Cam whispered, feeling weak. Thanks for your help. I'll have my wife contact you. I'll very much look forward to that. New scene. It's still September 21st, Saturday afternoon. Young Eric, Jordan, Josie, and Jamie left the basketball court and went to sit on the green lawn under the shade of a fern pine tree. You played basketball in high school too, didn't you? Jordan asked. Eric laughed. A little. It wasn't my focus, but I played my sophomore and junior years. Eric pulled 4 water bottles out of his pack, kept one for himself, and handed one to each of them. Those are yours to keep. Jordan looked at the water bottles. 3. These are hydro flasks. They're very expensive water bottles. Eric looked at her, his brow furrowed. Are you really going to give me a hard time about giving you a small gift of a water bottle? We have a whole stack in the kitchen closet. She sighed. Besides, he went on, you, all 3, are athletes, and you're going to need a good water bottle. Okay, I get it, and I realize the $200 you or someone spent on these is no big deal to you, but I just want you to know that I appreciate the gesture. He smiled. That's what I love about you. You don't take anything for granted. Please always keep me on my toes about stuff like that. She grinned. You can count on it. He pulled out his phone. Almost time to head back. Aw, Jamie complained. Before we do, will you show me some stuff? What stuff would you like me to show you? Some martial arts stuff. He nodded. Okay. I'll teach you the form you'll need to know in order to get your scholarship. He stood. While you guys do that, Josie and I are going to take a walk and have a little girl talk. Eric nodded. Don't go too far, please. Stay where I can see you. And don't go near the parking lot. Jason told me that though they located the car in your picture, they didn't locate the guy we were looking for. She nodded as she and Josie walked away. Eric turned to Jamie, had him come to attention, then bow, and then showed him the fighting stance. On their walk, Jordan spoke quickly. Okay, Josie, finally, you and me have some alone time to talk, but we don't have a lot of time, so let's get right to it, sweet girl. What's wrong? Josie looked up at Jordan, her lips trembling. I know that my dad hurt you. I know that's why he went to jail. Jordan nodded her head. I don't understand why he gets to visit with me and Jamie. Jordan sighed. Well, really, I don't get it either, but they think he hurt me because I wasn't really related to him, like he's not my real father. They think he wouldn't hurt you like he hurt me because he's your real father. Josie sniffed. But I think he would. Jordan stopped walking. Has he touched you? Has he hurt you? Josie looked up at her sister. He's touched me. He hasn't hurt me. What do you mean he's touched you? She shrugged. He always makes us give him a hug when he comes to visit. I mean, I don't even really know him. I was only 5 when he went away. I don't remember him very much at all. I remember he was mean and he yelled at Mom all the time. But I really don't know him, and I sure don't feel like hugging him, and I don't see why I have to. You don't. Yes, I do, because if I don't, he gets mad. Jordan started walking again. And what does Mom say? Josie shook her head. Mom tells me to give him a hug. Jordan could see that. Her mother was trying to just keep the peace and make sure they all survived the time with this man, trying not to rile him. This was not working, and they needed to get the visitation order revoked. She needed to talk to Mr. Adams. She turned her attention back to Josie. And do you know how Jamie feels about his dad? She shrugged. Jamie doesn't know him either. He was only 3. He doesn't remember him at all, and he doesn't like him because he's so mean, and he yells at us, and he just wants us to be quiet and go to our rooms, and he talks to Mom. Jordan nodded. Her eyes filled with tears. This situation couldn't go on any longer. She needed to do something. Josie, did something happen that made you want to tell me all this? Josie nodded. When he came the other night, the night you called Mom and he wouldn't let you speak to her, he went back to our room. I went back to see what he was doing in our bedroom, and he was like looking through your stuff, and he was looking through your drawers and in that box you keep under your bed. Jordan felt so overwhelmed she couldn't keep the tears from filling her eyes, and she swallowed. And what happened? And I told him that was your stuff, and you would be mad if anyone went through your stuff. And he grabbed my arms and he shook me, and he told me that I better keep my mouth shut. Jordan grabbed her sister and hugged her hard. Oh, sweetie, I am so sorry he did that to you. Okay, don't you worry anymore. You don't have to see him ever again. I'll make sure of it. Do you promise? Yes. I have to talk to a lawyer and get a court order, but I'll make sure of it. Besides, if the police ever see him again, they're going to arrest him and take him to jail. Really? Yes, because he's not supposed to be near me, and he grabbed me the other day. So that means he's going back to jail. They just have to catch him. So, Josie, if you ever see him, if he ever comes back, you have to call the police or just call me, and I'll call the police, okay? How? Oh, right. Well, I guess I'm going to have to get you a cell phone. I'll get right on it. Young Eric kept his eyes on Jordan and Josie as they walked back and forth on the green lawn that was between the basketball courts and the softball fields. He could tell there was a very serious discussion taking place, and he surmised it had to do with Jordan's stepfather. What young Eric didn't know was that someone else was watching Jordan and Josie as they walked and talked. Peter Perez sat in a white Toyota Camry, using binoculars to watch every move they made. His blood boiled with hatred for the cool, confident blonde who'd sent him to jail. And here she was, allowing her boyfriend to interact with his children. Who the hell did she think she was? Not that his kids were anything special. The boy seemed about as dumb as a brick, and the girl, though she was pretty, like her mom, was a carbon copy of Jordan's attitude, high and mighty, though Josie was much quieter. When she told him to leave Jordan's things alone the other day, he'd wanted to knock her upside the head, and almost had. Still, he didn't really care about seeing the little brats. They were a means to an end. Nope, he wasn't interested in Jamie or Josie or even Jordan. But the boyfriend, that was the way to go. Young Eric smiled at Jamie. You're doing great. You almost have it down. You're a fast learner. He glanced at his phone. But it's time to go and eat. And then we're all going to go see my cousin play football in a giant stadium and then spend the night at my house. How's that sound? It sounds great, Jamie said with a huge grin. Jordan, Eric called. We need to head out. Jordan took Josie's arm and went to join Eric and Jamie. Eric could instantly tell that tears had been shed. He looked into Jordan's eyes. He sighed, then smiled at her, gave her a nod, telling her without words that whatever was taking place, he was in her corner and would do whatever she needed him to do in order to help. New scene. It's still September 21st, Saturday afternoon, Keno Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Eric Sr. looked over the 5 napping children and quietly left the room in search of his wife. He found her at the kitchen table where she'd been folding laundry but was currently also napping, her head on her arms with a stack of freshly folded towels as a pillow. His heart went out to her. He'd never seen her so fatigued, even when she was training for the mart. Of course, she was 30 years older now. Still, the fact is, she's tired. She's working nonstop, and for some odd reason, she doesn't want to allow anyone to help her. Well, he's going to have to get to the bottom of what she's thinking, be it consciously or subconsciously, because he was not going to allow her to run herself into the ground. He started gathering the stacks of little shirts and pants and underwear and placing them in the basket to take upstairs, and Shelley startled awake with an indrawn breath. She looked around, trying to get her bearings, her eyes blinking. "It's just me," Eric said softly. I must have fallen asleep for a minute. Sorry." He shook his head. "Sweetheart, why don't you go upstairs and have a nap? You're obviously exhausted." She shook her head. "The children will be awake soon. I'll take care of them. And I need to start their dinner before Mickey gets here." "Why?" "Why? Doesn't Mickey know how to cook?" Shelley laughed. "Probably better than I do." "Well, then let her do it. She'll have a helper with her, correct?" "Yes, but still, that hardly seems fair. I mean, Mickey is 6 months pregnant." Eric nodded with a sigh. "This situation is not working out." "What? What are you saying?" Excuse me. "I'm thinking these children are just not fitting into our lifestyle very well." "How can you say that? These are our children. We are all they have. I'm surprised at you." He nodded, eyebrows raised. "Shelley, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to be totally honest." She sighed. "Okay. Do you want these children?" Her mouth opened wide with shock, and she rose. "I am going to pretend that you didn't really ask me that question. I'm going to pretend that you don't really think that. I'm going to chalk this up to you trying to pull some psychological BS on me." He smiled because she nailed it, and then he put on his serious face again. "Do you think I'm going to stand by and watch you work yourself to death?" Shelley stared up at him. "These are our children, and I'll do what I have to do to take care of them and raise them and teach them." He waited. "What?" Shelley asked. "And love them?" "Well, of course." Tears welled in her eyes and spilled over, and she dashed them away with the back of her hand. "I love them, but you know what? I'm not sure how I feel about you right now." He pressed his lips together to keep the smile from them. She quickly gathered the laundry from the table, lifted the basket, and stormed up the stairs. He watched her go. He realized he was going to have to go after this problem in stages. Stage 1, get her to acknowledge that she wanted the children and loved the children, but get her also to search her soul, to question her deepest feelings about the situation. When he questioned if the children fit into their lifestyle, her maternal instinct swung into action. She became defensive and protective. Good. Still, this was not going to be an easy fix. He sighed. Well, he accepted the challenge. God sent him back for a reason, probably for many reasons. He hadn't thought his Shelley girl would be one of them, but her problems always brought out the best in him. He was looking forward to dealing with her and discovering what amazing thoughts are going through her head. Jeffy came downstairs. "Dad, what in the world did you say to Mom?" "It's between me and her," he answered. "Why? What did she say?" that you are an insufferable idiot man, that you think you can say hurtful things to her with no consequences, and that she will not stand by and let you act like you haven't done anything wrong. She told you all that? Well, she wasn't speaking to me. She's in her room folding clothes and sort of talking to herself. Eric smiled at the picture Jeffy painted. Well, Daddy, are you going to go make up with her? He shook his head. No. She needs to think about the things I said. Jeffy's eyes narrowed. Honey, have I ever done anything to hurt your mom? Probably. He laughed. Obviously, you don't trust me to take care of my wife. She's working herself to death. I'm not going to allow it. She won't speak to me about what the real problem is, and I'm going to have to do some deep diving to get to the bottom of it. Some of it is probably the trauma of what she just went through over the past month, and it's surfacing in unexpected ways. But we're in a very strange situation, and I don't think there's a precedent, so I'm muddling my way through. Okay, so sorry I accused you of mistreating Mom. It's just that she's so sweet, and she works so hard, and... Oh, no, Jeffy said, putting her hand to her head. Eric moved forward and put his arms around her. Is it Cam? She sniffed. Yes. Oh, Daddy. Sit down. He eased her down into a chair at the kitchen table and pulled his phone. He's okay, Jason said immediately when he answered the phone. How bad? Eric asked. A couple of bad cuts. He's being airlifted. He'll get stitched up and swears he'll meet Jeffy at the game. And that is the end of chapter 18.